It looks great.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everybody. Happy Friday afternoon. My name is Nicole Cleary, and I am delighted to be invited to talk about creating friendships for our loved ones with Dup15q syndrome. And if I am also talking to people with 8p syndrome or ring 14 syndrome, welcome. I'm so glad to meet you virtually. What I have to say today applies to any chromosomal abnormality. So I come from having a daughter with Dup15q, but really what I'm going to say today is broadly applicable. So I'm going to share with you my approach to creating connection for a daughter who has isodicentric 15. This is Karina. She is 24 years old. She was born with chromosome 15 duplication syndrome, which we didn't figure out was the root of what we were starting to see as delays when she was 13 months old. So at 24, Karina is nonverbal. She has absolutely no speech. She uses a letterboard to communicate. She has some limited gesture. And she has Karina's idiosyncratic sign language, which people who know and love her know pretty well. She's autistic. She has all the deficits of autism. She is impacted by cognitive disability. It takes her longer to learn new things than it takes you and me. And she experiences seizures. She had one just this morning. So, you hear all those things and you think, oh God, that's terrible. Well, what I want to tell you also about Karina is that she lives with her best friend, who she has known for 10 years. And she enjoys frequent get-togethers with a group of friends who know and love and accept her. She totally knows what it is to be one of the gang, and she is delighted on the day when she and her gang of friends pile into my minivan and we go somewhere and we do something. And that is the part that I want to talk about today. So we started working on friendships as a serious focus when Karina was a freshman in high school. It was motivated in large part by the loneliness that I was seeing in the people who lived in the group homes where I worked. I spent a few years here in Portland coordinating services across group homes for adults with developmental disabilities. And they did not have connection. And I could see what the impact of lack of connection was having on them, the dullness of their faces, the lack of a spark or joy. And I saw that and I was like, oh, this is not what I want for Karina. What I'm going to tell you about focusing on friendships in my experience is that it requires patience and persistence and creativity and lots of energy. And I want to pause right here and say raising a kid with a disabling condition does not leave you with a tremendous amount of patience, persistence, creativity, or energy. It's a lot just to get through the day, just to get through that latest accident or that next meal or that next meltdown. And I know that life and I lived that life. And I think the reason we were able to do what we did is because that patience part came for me first. I was patient with myself, patient with the process, patient. So when I say patience, persistence, creativity, and lots of energy, please direct all of that to yourself as a parent, first and foremost, in this process. Because it's a lot of work. And friends and family and allies can help you. And my experience is that they want to help you because everybody benefits when people with disabilities are connected deeply in friendship. And so this is not a me project as a mom, this was a we project as all of the community that I could gather together for Karina's benefit. Okay. So what do we know about friendships for adults with disabilities? What I know is that adults experiencing disability often have limited social interactions beyond their families who love them very much, but who are limited. Their residential providers, if they live outside the home, their transportation providers, and their day program staff. That was what I saw when I was working in the group homes. There just weren't connections outside of those things. And what we know is that paid staff come in and out of supported adults' lives. In some places, it's like a rotating door. And if my Google Slides are working well, you are seeing that. When our loved ones live in a group home, their social needs may be secondary to meeting the basic needs of multiple clients in the residential setting. And in my case, in the 8 group homes where I was working, it absolutely was secondary. Those of you who are raising children, raising more than one child, know it's hard to meet everybody's needs. And when you put adults with disabilities in a congregate care setting, whether it's a 2-person group home or a 5-person group home or something bigger than that, just getting everyone dentist appointments and doctor appointments and therapy appointments is kind of all you feel like you can do sometimes. So I say this not to scare people, but to be realistic about what can be provided by a setting and what roles we have to play as the families to make sure that our loved ones have friendships. And I just want to underscore that everyone, regardless of disability, thrives when we get to spend time with friends. And look at ourselves. Like I absolutely thrive when I get to go walking with my friends and when I get to talk to my friends on the phone. And when I get to go do things, go to a restaurant or whatever with my friends, that makes me happy. It makes me feel light. It makes me feel connected. And if you have any question on this point, I encourage you to just do research on loneliness in adults with disability or friendships in adults with disability. You will see that the research shows that people with disability, when they are supported well with friendships and social connectedness, they are happier, they are healthier, and they thrive, just like you and just like me. Okay, so what did we do? And what do you do? If you have this recognition, oh my God, this is really important, and it feels like it's a lot, what do? Well, what we did is we made friendship a goal. I was just like, okay, this has to be center stage. And one of the things I know about adults or parents of children with disabilities is that we are really good at focusing on goals. We've been focusing on goals since the day that we learned that our kid had a condition that made them different than everybody else. Pretty much from that day on, you started with physical therapists and occupational therapists and teachers and specialists, and you had goals, you had treatment plans and goals. So parents of kids with disabilities are extraordinary at setting goals and reaching goals. And I encourage everyone to recognize that in yourself. That's a strength that you have. And to the degree that we have time and energy and resources, friendships are a really important goal to add to the list of goals that you already have for your child. I want to note that special education staff are also quite skilled at focusing on goals, but my experience was that building friendship was not a familiar goal for them. They didn't have a bunch of models, and they didn't have a bunch of curriculum, and they didn't have a bunch of lived experience. And so really, it was sort of me and my insistence that we were going to dedicate and focus Karina's high school experience on building friendships, which I think was really instrumental in the outcomes that we got. And what I mean to say by that is that we have to invite everyone in our children's lives, their teachers, their paraeducators, their therapists, any educational or special provider they have, to join the team. We are the cheerleaders. We, the parents, are the ones who inspire the team to see that being in relationship and having friends, this picture of Karina with her friends at a restaurant in high school, is such a far cry from her middle school experience of being excluded from the school cafeteria and kept in the classroom because they didn't have staffing to support her in the cafeteria. Like, her middle school experience to her high school experience was night and day. And part of that is because I said, this is the goal. Karina will have friends. Karina will go out to, I don't even remember what this restaurant is. It might even be Chuck E. Cheese. I think it is Chuck E. Cheese, actually, when I look at it. It's us who sets the goal and who pulls the team together and inspires the team and cheerleads the team. It is not, in fact, us, though, who does every single step of the way. So We centered building friendships as Karina's educational goal in high school. And we were lucky because Karina's teacher in high school already had a strong commitment to inclusion. What she thought inclusion meant was taking the disabled students in her classroom and including them with the general education peers in the high school. But what it meant for me with Karina was taking my daughter who didn't have the ability to speak and didn't always have the ability to self-regulate and didn't have the ability to make friends and include her in that classroom community as the inclusive community. So kids with Duke 15Q are on a spectrum. Many of them are out in general education environments. And so what inclusion means for them is different than what inclusion meant for Karina. But we were lucky in that Karina's teacher already had that predisposition towards inclusion, and I was able to harness that and help her come and see the vision that I had. So the students in Karina's freshman year class were really different than what she'd had in elementary and middle school. In elementary and middle school, she was put in classrooms for autistic children. Communication behavior classrooms is what they call them in Portland Public Schools. And those classrooms did serve some needs for her. They taught her how to learn some things. But the problem was every single kid in that class had the same communication and social deficits that she did. And there's no way to make any progress when everyone is in a deficit position. So Karina had to be integrated with some pro-social, very verbal, kind of bossy kids. And luckily she was in her freshman year class. And so I looked at the situation in the classroom. I noted that I had an ally in the teacher, and I also noted that that teacher and the therapists that were supporting that classroom had so much work to do. They had more work to do than they had hours in the day. And so I really sort of got right in there, as I do as a mama bear that we all are. And I suggested IEP goals to them. So I was super clear that the IEP should be centered on promoting Karina's interactions with a wide variety of peers. It wasn't a goal unto itself, it was the foundation of the IEP, and I'm going to talk about that. So when I say that I was centering friendship as a goal in the IEP, it meant that all of the goals that she had were structured with friendship at their core. So Karina had functional reading goals, as probably many of your kids do. And rather than make it about, you know, Karina will get a bunch of new words or Karina will point to words, I was like, nope, that's not the goal. The goal is about Karina will sit next to a peer and she will independently point to things that she wants other kids to read to her. And that was a really appropriate goal for her, because she was already using the adults in her life in this manner. What we needed to do was transition her from seeing adults as voice boxes for Dr. Seuss's ABCs to seeing her peers as other possible voice boxes for Dr. Seuss's ABCs. So Karina had to learn something here. Karina had to reach, because she was pretty comfortable in knowing, like, okay, here's the nice teacher and here's the nice paraeducator, and they'll sit with me and they'll read Dr. Seuss's ABC over and over and over again, to exploring like, oh, look, there are all these other human beings in this room and they too could read Dr. Seuss's ABC. And she already had the skill of pointing to the words. So I just took what she already had and I shifted the focus. I centered the friendship piece. Same with functional communication. Karina uses a letterboard and she does have some sign. And we wanted to make sure that her functional communication was no longer solely focused on adults as a communication partner, but was instead focusing on her peers. So we created on the back of her letterboard an invitational sentence that just said, please read with me, that had a picture of Karina laughing and smiling. And the adults were prompted to have her walk to peers in the classroom and point to the sentence. The peers, most of the peers could read the sentence, please read with me. And that smiley picture of Karina was a lovely invitation. And so that's where we started. And then the staff were super well trained. Karina has to have these functional communication things. They would go to lunch and Karina would be sitting next to someone, Adam, say Adam. And the teacher would say, Karina, tell Adam, do you like this pizza? And Karina learned to do the I like it sequence to a peer, as opposed to an adult who had always been her communication partner up to that point. With independent living, we had a focus on Karina moving independently through familiar routines with her friends and peers. And this required trust, like for the teachers to move from, in proximity to line of sight took trust. So I had to practice that patience. I had to let Karina get familiar enough with that classroom setting that the adults felt comfortable enough moving from proximity to line of sight to allow her to start working on this goal. And that's what I mean by patience. It takes time. You have the vision, you know where you want to get to, but it's baby steps to get there sometimes. And then vocational skills development, I laugh about this one to this day because Karina hates being asked to wipe tables or do many of the things that are usually the vocational opportunities for people who experience her level of disability. And she really disdains it. She'll like take the rag and she'll hold it like this with this look on her face, like, ugh. So the goal was to get her to do those vocational tasks with a peer buddy, starting with preferred tasks and then increasing. And, we had mixed success because Karina just doesn't prefer to do vocational tasks. So anyway, I hope you're getting a flavor of how you center friendships as the sort of, the heart and soul of your IEP. That's what we did in freshman year, and that's what we continued to do through all 4 years of high school. So once we had the IEP in place, we had to identify what I call interesting and interested peers. We needed that school team, because I wasn't in that classroom. I needed the team to help figure out which peers does Karina seem somewhat interested in and which peers are pro-social and find it fun to engage with people. So we asked them to directly support engagement with peers as outlined in the IEP. Again, that IEP is this tool now that I can use to hold everyone accountable to this vision. So, I was just asking routinely, who does Karina notice? Who does Karina look at? Who seems to be really interested in joining her in an activity? Those peers all had their own goals. And if one of their goals was being of service, for example, could they be of service with Karina? And because I was just such a persistent, I guess, cheerleader for this, we were able to get the staff to help us figure out, who enjoys spending time with Karina. If you read Karina, the Dr. Seuss's ABCs, she will laugh and clap. Who likes that? Who finds that to be rewarding? It's, finding those connections between people. It's as individual as it is for you and I. When we identify people, we're like, oh, I like that person. I want to spend more time with that person. It's the same. It just needs support in the case of a person who's experiencing disability like Karina. So then we realized that she would have whatever level of support and success she was going to have in that classroom environment. But like with everything in life, the classroom was never going to be enough to realize the dreams that I had. And so we had to move this outside of the classroom, and I had to put skin in the game beyond the skin that I already had. And so we were lucky in that her high school had an early release every Wednesday. And I don't know if your kids' schools have this, but boy, was it helpful for us. Because families always found, I can tell you, because I had 3 kids, early release Wednesday was always a pain in my ass. Like I had to change my work schedule and I had to figure out coverage. And when I just decided I'm going to just fill in that 2 hours that normally these kids would be in school with an outing, so that those families don't have to do anything beyond what they normally do. They normally send their kids to school at 8 a.m. They normally get their kids home from school on the bus at 3:45, except Wednesdays when it's 1:45. And what I offered is to simply take responsibility for those 2 hours and use those 2 hours to connect Karina with the peers in her classroom that the staff had identified. So I would pick up Karina and 1 or 2 friends and take them out to do something fun. And this was the beginning of what is now called in our family's life, Friends Group. Friends Group is an integral part of our family's life. Anyone who follows me on Facebook will see friends group outings to this day. We've been doing friends group since freshman year. And it came from these early release Wednesdays when I recognized that, boy, wouldn't it be easy for other families to just have these 2 hours covered by me instead of by the school. So what I did was schools are there's a lot of privacy laws around FERPA, very highly private environment. You can't just reach out to these other families. And my experience anyway in schools is that the disabled families don't connect in the way that the typical families do. I had typical kids and did field trips with them and met other families in the hallway and whatnot. But with Karina, she was being bused to her school at quite some distance, and I rarely met other families. So I really needed those teachers and those staff to help me reach out to those families. So what I did was I got the teacher to agree that if I sent home a note, an invitation to a parent explaining that we wanted to take their kid out for pizza, or we wanted to take their kid out for bowling or Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, that they would put it in the kid's backpack or give it to the kid and tell the kid, hey, do you want to go out with Karina after school? And that's how I got the parents' permission. And I committed to being that person who would fill those 2 hours, who would take Karina and whoever, it worked out to take them out. And then I recognized again that this is a heavy lift. This is heavy lifting. And Karina herself needs supports in this going out into the community. So I used her respite hours to have an assistant to help me when we would do friends group on those Wednesdays. What I learned, Karina's peers loved going out, and many of them rarely got to go out. Their families too were also barely making it and didn't have time or money or energy to get their kids together with other kids whose families it's hard to get to know, because there's no such thing as PTA participation when you've got a kid with a disability being bused halfway across the city. All those factors that I talked about being isolating me from other parents, those other parents experience those same factors. So what I discovered quickly is that except for the very most independent peers that she had in that high school class, those kids were never going out. They were never going bowling. They never went out with friends. Many of them had never been to a birthday party. And so there was a tremendous unmet need for community outings. And I was luckily in a position where we had a minivan and I had a part-time work schedule and the support of my husband and the support of an assistant to make it possible. And I want to acknowledge right now that I have benefited from all these things in making this possible. And not everybody has that. And I don't think it's necessary. It's just my story. I think everybody can start where they are and do what they can. But that's where we started. And that's what I learned, is there's huge unmet need for community outings. So my role was to be the organizer and to be the driver. And I quickly learned it was also to be the cheerleader. Everybody wants to be seen and appreciated and enjoyed and feel welcomed and feel like they're important. I feel that way when I go out with my friends, and especially when I'm going out with a new group of friends, like when people receive me like, oh, Nicole, we're so glad you joined us today. Gosh, that feels really good. And I wanted to offer that to Karina's friends. And I couldn't offer that if I was so focused on meeting Karina's needs. So my job was to be the cheerleader for the group, to be so excited when each peer joined us and to learn some things about them and to reflect my excitement that they were joining us today. And Karina's assistant was really focused on supporting her needs. So for us, what that needed to be was Karina has grown up into the world of iPads, and iPads offer her a lot of comfort. They offer her self-soothing, they offer her entertainment, and like many people, it can be hard for her to put the iPad down. So Karina's assistant was making sure that Karina put the iPad down and used her letterboard and used her sign language and used her natural communicative intents, whatever they are, to participate in the group as fully as she was able, which looks really different than what the other kids look like. And what my job was to make the other kids recognize that Karina was the same as them. It just looks different. So the assistant focused on supporting her and putting the iPad down. In waiting, like if we would go bowling, Karina, for waiting and taking turns, that's still not a strength. She's 24 years old and we are still supporting her in the bowling alley with this. Helping Karina talk to her peers. You know, Karina will point to people she's really interested in. And we needed the assistant to say, you know, oh, David, Karina's really interested in you today. How is your day? And help David see that Karina's pointing to him was her way of talking to him, was her way of saying, hi, David, how are you? So you'll see in this picture right here, one of her assistants is the woman on the left side of the picture. And there's Karina in the middle of a group of friends with no iPad, you know, pointing, everybody's smiling, everyone's having a shared joyful experience in this park. But Karina needs supports to be present in this way that are different than those other three friends who are more independent. So we recognized that Karina was always going to need her own assistant to be able to express her preferences and participate as fully as she was able. And sometimes when we see her getting overwhelmed in friends group, we just let her have her iPad and let her be with the friends with the iPad. Like I needed a good assistant to always be able to follow her cues because my focus really needed to be on gelling with the group. Okay, so the reality is, as you can probably hear from my voice, Friends Group is really habit forming. We have been supporting these friends for 10 years. We supported them from high school on the left side of your screen through COVID in the middle to on the other side of COVID. Oh my God, we are so excited to be back in person because I will tell you that Karina did not thrive in Zoom friendship land. But it's been a joy. It has been an authentic joy for me. I will tell you that there are things in my life that I feel pretty proud of. I can kind of count them on two hands, and Friends Group is absolutely one of them. I know that this work that I've put in has made such a difference for her and for all her friends and for all the people who have supported it and for all the people who witness it. It's really been deeply satisfying for me personally to do it. I love these guys. I look forward to going and having tater tots and burgers with them once a month. That is a fun day for me. It's exhausting, but it's fun and I love it. And so I'm going to share with you just quickly, again, just sort of reiterate the model that I used and then hopefully take any questions that you might have. So for any family who wants to focus their energy on building friendship for your child with a chromosomal abnormality, here's what we did. First, we set a goal, then we engaged a team, we inventoried interests, we identified potential friends, we tried fun things, we made friends outings a regular routine, we enjoyed ourselves and shared our successes, and we kept ourselves inspired. And I will give you just a bit more on each of those. So setting a goal, this is the most important part. I was inspired by what I saw in the group homes where I worked. I am hoping that this presentation might be a seed of inspiration for you. Whatever it is, when you get that inspiration, it is so important that you use that inspiration to set a goal. And your goal is going to be the right goal for you and your family. And I found my way to my goal. I didn't, like where we are today exceeds the wildest imaginations I had when I first started when she was a freshman. So the goals evolve with what's possible. And I just want to stress, it's not about the quantity. It's not about, okay, Karina went out with 20 friends. It's about the quality. It's about seeing her do her happy flapping when one of her friends comes in the room. It's about the connection that she feels to these folks. And it really just takes a few friends to make us feel connected. I think I've pretty well made the case that relationships are not formed by simply grouping people together. Our loved ones with chromosomal abnormalities probably will need some support and to have someone facilitate their involvement in outings. And it's really important to think long-term. We are going to be our kids' advocates for our whole lives. And we can afford to think long-term about these folks who we are connecting with our kids. So this picture that you have on the right is Karina and the woman she now lives with when they are freshmen in high school. And you might see that Karina is walking and pointing to the ABCs, and her roommate is reading to her, and I am walking ahead of them taking the photo. So I definitely was thinking long-term. I was already thinking about supported living for Karina when we met this young woman. And it was through multiple times of meeting her and her family when I suggested that they could be roommates in supported living. That is what made the living situation that Karina has today possible. So thinking long-term is really important. It's really important to look at where are the inclusion advocates in your child's life. You probably have them. Some of them may be thinking inclusion means the combining of kids with disabilities with individuals without disabilities, and that is absolutely inclusion, but it is also inclusion to take a kid with disability who's fairly what you would call quote unquote low functioning and to get them included with other kids who experience disabilities who are higher functioning. And that's what inclusion was for us. And so then once you've identified people who think that inclusion is important and a goal that they want to throw in with, then how can you inspire them with your dreams of friendships? Here's a picture of Karina and that same young woman from freshman year. Here they are as seniors. Here they are on the steps of the high school at the beginning of senior year with a friend of theirs. This is a peer of theirs who was volunteering in the classroom, helping hold up the sign that says, "We are seniors." And I love this picture and I love everything that it represents. I just want to say, don't ever underestimate your ability to inspire others to become active in helping you with these dreams. I think everyone recognizes the importance of friendship and everyone wants people with disabilities to experience friendship. I've never met someone who's like, nah, that's not important. And, you know, I think it is important to pause for a minute and look at your own experience with loneliness. And when the going gets rough, I think talking about loneliness can help inspire others to know why is it that it is important actually to make sure that you've got staffing so that these two can sit together at lunch and see if they can communicate well. Like there's going to be all these choice points along the way and you use whatever you can use to keep people inspired. You have to inventory your child's interests because for the going out into the community, you definitely want to start where your child already has some joy in being in the place. So what are the places where your child is already happy that you want to expand that happiness and explore having other people engaging with your child and experiencing it with your child? So for Karina, she loves walking. So we have identified a lot of parks she likes. Karina tends to like high sensory activities, but I also know a lot of people who like low sensory activities. So what kind of sensory experience lights your child up? Do they like to go swimming? Do they like to go bowling? Do they like to go mall walking? Are their favorite restaurants? Like these are all the things that we do with Karina and her friends. If you look at what adult day programs are doing, it's also what they are doing. These are just kind of common everyday things that I'm listing here. But don't start with them just because that's what everybody else does. Start with the ones that really meet your child at their point of interest and their point of happiness. You want to start in their happy place. It's important that you are able to help your allies understand the importance of their role in observing your child with the peers, because you aren't going to be in the classroom or the day program or the child care center or wherever it is that is your starting point. For us, it was that freshman year classroom, but your starting point may be different. Your allies have to understand that they play such an important role in helping observe who is it that your child is noticing and who is it that seems particularly comfortable with your child, or who is just kind of an outgoing person and is willing to engage with your child. And then you're going to have to ask those allies to help facilitate communication. again, the initial goal is not to make friends, but to increase shared experiences that seem fun. That's why you're starting in a place where your child is already having fun, and then you're expanding those opportunities. When I'm out with Karina's friends, I'm absolutely asking them, hey, was this fun today? What did you like about it? Do you want to do something different, or do you want to do this again? Like, making sure that each participant does like what the activity is, because if they just didn't like the activity, then you might not want to invite them back to that particular activity. And so it's important to pay attention to the friends and what are they liking. And just like for us, it takes multiple shared experiences to decide if we want to be friends with someone. That's certainly true for me. And it's true for our kids too. And so what we want to do is have these fun outings that we know high likelihood our kids are going to enjoy it, and then see, hey, do you like it too with the peers? Then once you have some peers that have had a few shared experiences that were fun, then making it a regular routine is, in my experience, what really cements these friendships. Regular opportunities help the groups coalesce. I really practice flexibility about what the activity is. I try not to get too mired down into like, we have to go bowling or we have to go park walking. But I keep myself centered on, are we connecting and is this fun? And if it's not, what can I shift to bring it more into a fun, easy, relaxed, joyful place? I am always trying to bring other adults or support staff so that Karina has the support she needs. I have certainly supported friends groups sometimes myself. It's really exhausting, and it's frankly not going to be sustainable for me to always do it by myself. I can sometimes do it by myself, but it's not sustainable for me to do it always by myself. And so knowing that I need support staff, I am super careful to make sure I'm picking support staff who themselves are friendly and outgoing. I don't need another warm human who's distracted on their phone. What I need is someone who's going to talk to the friends just like I'm talking to the friends, who's going to kind of keep the energy and the excitement and the joy high. And I've been lucky to find that. Most of Karina's support staff are people who've come into contact with her in either a professional relationship or through her supported living where she lives. They've been staff there. And they all know the dream because it's how I center my training for my staff too. And then I think it's really important to take and share pictures with friends, because when we see ourselves as part of a group, that's when we get the benefit of feeling that joy of being part of a group. But sometimes, like for me, if I go somewhere with a group of people and then I see a picture of myself with that group of people having fun on Facebook, I'm like, oh yeah, I really like that. It's reinforcing. And taking and sharing of pictures is really reinforcing. And again, my experience is that Karina's friends don't have a million people taking fun pictures of them smiling and laughing and doing things. I look at their Facebook pages sometimes, and they are adults who have Facebook pages, and I am often the pictures that I'm sharing are some of the very few pictures that ever get posted there. So I am just aware that taking and sharing of pictures is really instrumental for people's feelings of connectedness. It's important to share your successes. I hope that you're hearing my authentic enjoyment for being part of Friends Group, being the Friends Group coach, if you will. And your authentic enjoyment is attractive to people. So I think I've also sort of communicated that you have to find ways to make it sustainable. It has to feed you as well as feeding your child. So I do reflect on the fun aspects of every trip we go on and embrace what I'm grateful for. I'm a person who, as part of my life and part of my wellness practices, I do have a gratitude practice. And these friends are often part of my gratitude because I'm so grateful that Karina has this great group. I mean, just look at her. She's the second one in. You've probably come to see her in all these pictures to know which one is. She's the second one on the left. She's fully embraced and happy and grateful and engaged. Oh my God, I'm so happy. And it fills me. I do feel like it feeds me to be her friends group coach. And I think that's really important for any choices you make around friendships, like make sure it's feeding you too. Sharing your successes is an inspiration for other parents who are working on developing friendships. I hope that this has been inspiring for some of you. Sharing your successes on social media helps all of your connections, all of your family and friends to see your child as an engaged, loved member of their community, not someone who needs pity or who needs, oh, I'm so sorry, but as a fully, vibrantly, fully participatory member of her own story, of her own community. And that's what I want my friends to know. I want my friends to know that Karina is a fully functioning human. She's just a fully functioning human that's quite different than you and me. And the fact of the matter is that we are ambassadors for our children with disabilities. And so to the degree that you can share your successes, you are sharing what is possible for our kids with the wider world. And that's so important in the disability rights movement for us all to be sharing successes and sharing this great photo of these people who love and are loved by each other. And everyone is joyful. And some of us in this picture have a disability and some of us in this picture don't. So yeah, we are ambassadors. And then lastly, I think I've mostly covered this, just recognizing that you're making a lifelong difference, not only for your child, but also for the friends that they're interacting with. Making sure that you remember that when your loved one is interconnected and embedded with a group of friends, it's going to have a powerful impact on their health and well-being, as it will on yours. It certainly has on mine. And my last note that I want to say is just making sure that we are all asking for help in this process. Who do you know who believes in the power of friendship and would be willing to support a few hours of fun connection? Is there someone at your church? Is there someone in your 12-step meeting? Is there someone in your neighborhood association? Like, where are the people in your life who will join you in this work? Because it's joyful work to do. So ask for help. All right. Our hope is that the approach that we've described here is going to be relevant for all of you, whatever your situation is with your child, however old your child is. I think this approach works whether your child is 56 or 6. As long as your child is embedded somewhere where there are other peers, you can make this approach work. And I really look forward to hearing about some of your experiences through our Duke 15Q community on Facebook. I warmly invite anyone to reach out to me directly if you'd like to share ideas or experiences, because building friendships is one of my favorite things to talk about. And so I promised that I would leave time for questions, and here we are. Time for questions. Does anybody have any questions or comments or hopes and fears they'd like to talk about? I am open. And I think I'm going to stop the share. I'll give 1 minute for people to take my my email address if they want, but it's hard for me, I think, to
There's a mic right here, so you can ask, so she can hear you.
I apologize. We do have a couple questions.
Oh, don't apologize. I see one in the chat. So let's take the live ones and then I'll take the chat ones.
Hey, Nicole, this is Erin Dwyer. I came and interviewed you a few years ago, and you told me everything that you told me today, and I've been trying to implement it, but I'm just terrible at it. So thank you for being here, and it's awesome, actually, working on friendships with my daughter at Tigard High School, actually.
Hey.
I have a question for you, and that is, can I come on one of your outings?
Of course. You and your daughter can come on an outing.
I would love it. So next time, like, I don't know how to get you my information or if you still have my information, but I would love to be one of your supportive adults just to see what goes on and to see if I can even handle it.
Sure. Yeah. So my email, can you see the chat? Like I am terrible at hybrid. I can do all Zoom and I can do all in person, but I'm super novice at this hybrid business. My email It's probably in the slides. If you have, I think they were going to put the slides in the whatever they called it, the online or the app. So anyway, it's nicleary503@gmail.com. The easiest way to reconnect, because I don't know if I have your stuff in my phone or not, is just to shoot me an email and I'll shoot one back to you. So it's nicleary, last name 503, our shared area code @gmail.com. Okay. I see a email in the chat, and so I'm gonna, or a question in the chat, so I'm gonna address this question. And the question is, do we pay for the whole group's activity? The answer to that is yes and no. So some of these young people, all of them are over 18, so they all get their Social Security disability. Some of them need every dollar of that Social Security disability to meet their basic needs. Some of them do not. I generally ask the parents, you know, we're going to go bowling this week. Is that a thing that you could throw in a few dollars for, or would you like us to get it? And that's how I phrase it. I try so hard to be really sensitive, and I'm really clear myself that money should not be a barrier here. And part of that is because Tim is paid as a personal support worker for Karina. We're in Oregon able to hire our family as staff. And I'm the employer, but he's one of the workers, and he already has a full-time job. So what we've done is we have used those funds that he earns through being her personal support worker as a sort of slush fund for Friends Group. So it doesn't feel like it's exactly coming out of our pocket, but I pay for a lot. Some of these friends are really low income, and I never ask them to pay for anything. Other friends insist on paying for everything. And I just try to meet the friends where they are and remember who's in which situation so that I don't offend anyone either direction. But for us, we have privilege, and we have the privilege of having Tim be a PSW and having the support fund that we have through the Medicaid reimbursement of his supports to her. So, are there any other in-person questions? I can't really tell. I see you guys in the room, but I can't tell if you guys have questions.
No, Nicole, none at this time.
Okay, then I will answer Elaine's question. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Friends Group is awesome. How could you see this work with a 5-year-old in TK? Any tips for much younger kids? Okay. Yes, I could see it working depending on your child's state of readiness. What I'm going to be really honest about is that Karina's autism was quite a barrier to her being able to interact with anyone other than a very skilled adult, either a very skilled or loving adult, because her deficits in communication were profound. I don't know anything about your child, but I think it's important to reflect on some of the readiness things for having friends and reaching out to friends, which is, you know, can your child draw another person's attention? Can your child quiet enough to observe other people? Are there activities that your child loves that, you know, you do as a family and would be easy to expand to another family or another kid tagging along with your family? 5-year-olds for sure are gonna need their own dedicated support. So do you have the resources? Does your 5-year-old have a sibling who would be willing to be their support in a friendship situation? I would absolutely start the conversation about centering IEPs around friendship at I don't know if TK stands for like kindergarten or what that exactly stands for. But centering friendships in the IEP, I think as soon as you've got an IEP, it might be called an IFSP, Individual Family Services Plan, if you're not at school age yet, but centering relatedness and friendships in the IEP, you can start that anytime. You can start that, you know, again, if you have a 56-year-old who's in a day program, those programs have to have goals for the people they're supporting. Everybody has to have goals and objectives. Medicaid won't pay without a treatment plan, right? So you get to say, hey, we're going to center the treatment plan in friendships. And I don't care whether your kid's 6 or 56, that's available to you. So again, I don't know enough about your 5-year-old, but again, I would be happy to take a phone call and do one of my little walks in my park and talk to you about your specific situation and help brainstorm with you. Gosh, what's possible for me? Because this for me, this is spiritual work. This is heart work. It's been such a gift to Karina and her friends and me in my life that I'm really happy to take the time to talk to anybody who wants to talk about friendships, really. My schedule can be a little dense and it can take a minute to find that time, but we'll find it. And I am authentically offering that to anyone who wants that. All right, another message. Oh, you are welcome.
I like wearing it.
All right, any other questions? Todd, did this whole thing get recorded or were there glitches? I know sometimes my internet glitches and I did see a few little circles. Did the whole thing go through without glitching?
Yeah, no, we had you here in the room perfectly and it is recorded. So we're in great shape.
Fantastic. I'm so excited about that. Yeah, that's awesome. I don't sometimes, you know how it is on Zoom. When you hang up, you don't know you've hung up. It's not till everybody's like, hey, you've been frozen for 5 minutes. You're like, oh, okay. So, yeah. Hello, Wendy, Allison, Patty. Any hints on when a possible friend parent is unwilling? Well, that is a challenge I have not had. I have had friend parents be defended and realize in talking with them that the situation is one about finances. So I've had friend parents say no, no, no. And realize over time that the issue was the money piece. And so what I've done in that situation, one of Karina's friends had a dad who was pretty defended for quite a while. And I was persistent. So remember, patience, persistence. I was persistent. I kept reaching out. And I would say, I would absolutely accept the no, but I would accept the no for this outing. So, we'd invite his son to go bowling. No. Okay, we'll call you again next time. And I'd let some weeks go by. I definitely was not all up in his grill about, you got to go out with Karina. But I knew from watching his son with Karina in the classroom, because I would come on Wednesdays and pick them up and see a little bit that this kid was a great candidate for friends group. I just kept inviting. So I was persistent. And at one point I disclosed, hey, you know what? We do this with a lot of the kids in the class. A lot of the kids are really having fun and it's no cost because we have this account because we get paid by the state. And so we have a fund and we just pay. And I offered that proactively. And I just said, we do it for everybody, which was not true, but whatever. I'm trying to see if, it's like anytime you're meeting resistance in a relationship, you got to get curious about what is this relationship? What is the need under this resistance? And I just was guessing. So I was persistent and I guessed and I gave them the story about how we pay for it. And then he let his son come. And oh my God, once his son came, that was it. Also, at the high school level, fortunately, you can start to form texting relationships with the kids themselves. You don't always have to use the parent as a broker. But I know that's not available until the kids are of a certain age and of a certain level of ability that they have their own communication and their own phone. But yeah, I would say my hints would be try to stay curious about that parent's unwillingness, be persistent, be friendly, and share those pictures of your kids. So one of the things I didn't talk about here that we did is Karina's classroom had every Monday, they would have a check-in. What did you do this weekend? And I started sending in pictures of Karina and her friends from the previous Wednesday for the Monday check-in because the teacher was very skilled at including nonverbal children as much as the verbal students. So when it was Karina's turn for what did you do this weekend, She had an overhead projector, and I would just send in a piece of paper where I had printed 2 or 3 pictures of Friends Group the previous week. And I would write, 2 sentences. We went bowling. I had fun. And sometimes she could get Karina to point to the words, and sometimes Karina wanted nothing to do with it. But the picture went on the overhead anyway, and every kid in that class saw that, oh, some of my friends got to go bowling on Wednesday. And so that worked on the kid and kept the kid interested. And then my persistence with the parent and my curiosity about what is this resistance? Because I didn't know what it was. And I just kept guessing. And one day I guessed right. And then that kid got to join us. And that kid's still with us today. Not every time. That kid says no a lot, actually. And the reason that kid is saying no a lot is because he has a family who takes him camping and takes him to their house and does a lot of stuff with him. And that's awesome. He has extended family. Not every kid has that. But he says no to me. I want to say maybe 30% of the time I invite him. I don't take it personal. I'm just like, okay, that's no this time. Will I invite you again? Because you're a good fit. Because David is a good fit with our group. And I like David. So yeah, those are my hints. Okay, it is 1:57. Last call for questions.
Nicole, thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. I am going to do one thing, which is that says to all panelists. Does that mean all? Oh, here, if I do all panelists and attendees, I'm just going to put my email again in the chat. And it's really truly a warm invitation to reach out to me. I can't promise that I can talk to you tomorrow, but we will make time and we will do it. So feel free. And I'm so grateful to you, Todd, for recording this so that the Alliance can offer this session on the website, and it's available. And, my permission's absolutely to share it with any of the 8P families or Ring 14 families, anyone who finds it useful. This is a joy, and I am just grateful to be able to share it with y'all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have an awesome weekend.
You as well, and safe travels to everyone who is going to be heading home from the conference. And safe and happy weekends to all of you who are with me in the Zoom room. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.